Before you bring your new tarantula home, you have to set him or her up a home. Now first of all, what sort of tarantula have you got? Have you got an arboreal tarantula that lives in enclosures like this, so upright? Or have you got one that's terrestrial, so it'll live on the ground? Also, how big is your tarantula? Remember, they don't like to live in huge enclosures. So if you have a regular size, fully grown female, this enclosure will do you fine, or this one is arboreal. Whereas if you've got a smaller tarantula, you might want to go for this size here, or even this size here. The best way to tell the size of your enclosure is usually about 2 leg spans across, and don't go very high if it's an arboreal spider, because they can fall off the glass here. But make sure you give it plenty of height to climb if it wants to climb as well. Now you've chosen the right size of enclosure for your new tarantula, I'd just like to go over though a few finer points of necessity. The glass lid here. Make sure it fits securely on the top, because tarantulas have been known to escape very easily, and they can even push the lids off, some of them, if you get a very large species. The other thing to look for is the mesh in the back. It needs to be very well ventilated. These enclosures have been specially made. If you don't have a specially made enclosure, make sure it has a lot of ventilation in it. Okay, now let's put it all together. Firstly, we're going to use the peat potting mix. Make sure that your potting mix or the soil that you use has not been chemically treated. So organic is the best. So we pour in about so much. So it's about 1/3 we've got in there of the enclosure. Now the mixture is potting mix and vermiculite. Now vermiculite holds an awful lot of moisture, so we don't want to use all of this as substrate. So we've got 2/3 soil and we've got 1/3 vermiculite. You might want to go even a little bit less than that. So we mix it all together like so. And then it's nice and mixed. Get some water, not too much. You want to make it just a bit damp. Tarantulas like their moisture, but they don't want to be drowned. The other thing you want to look out for as well, that with their food, their crickets, you don't want to drown their crickets either, and they can suffer more so than the spider can. So give it a good mix around there. The next thing you want to put in place is a hide spot for them. Best to use a bit of cork barking like this. You can also use half a flower pot if you like, but they need to be able to just get in underneath and have a nice little hide spot in there. Okay, so then with the water, I use water crystals personally. Now with the water crystals, you just sprinkle a small amount in there, add your water and leave it overnight. Don't put it straight in and offer it to the spider, because they have to swell. Never put just the water dish in there, because the food will drown in there, and also it has been known that some spiders can drown in there as well. So use either water crystals, or if you're still uncomfortable with that, use a spray bottle and keep the enclosure nice and moist. Now for your heat source. I personally use a heat mat. If you do live in a climate where you can keep your room between about 27 to 32 degrees, then that's fine. Now I use a heat mat just to be on the safe side, because if you use a thermostat like this one, you can regulate the temperature and you're not running the risk of your spider overheating. Now with heat mats, always put them on the back of the enclosure Never ever put them underneath because it can crack the glass. Also, tarantulas like to dig down into their soil and they're not too intelligent when it comes to heat. They can actually sit there and cook themselves, so you want to avoid that. So stick your heat mat like so. That's better. You'll have to put your sensor into the enclosure. I prefer to put it in at the opposite end to the heat mat. So in the back of the mesh, you can just pull away. There's a little bit of silicone in the back there you can pull away. And stick your sensor in like so. Now, I would re-stick that together again because I have known spiders, once they've found a little hole in mesh or anywhere, they will actually start to chew away, and to make sure it's nice and sealed in that spot there. Now plants. Use plastic plants, don't use real plants because they tend to die very quickly. So, nice plastic plant. Some people say tarantulas don't need plants, but hey, I think it looks good. And what do we know? They might enjoy having a bit of foliage in there, and it adds to a bit of privacy as well. So place your water dish in. Now naturally with the water crystals, remember. Secure your lid on like so. Now set your temperature on the dial. So like I said, you want to aim for about 27 to 30. I wouldn't go over 32. And then if you really want to be on the safe side, you can use a little stick-on thermometer here, and you can stick it into the enclosure onto the cool end of the enclosure, like so. Now get your temperature up and you want your humidity up. Now how do you tell if the humidity is okay? Well, you can use a gauge to see, like a hydrometer if you want to, but usually when there's a bit of condensation on the glass, that you know the humidity is quite high in there. Once you've got your temperature and your humidity levels right, you're ready to bring your new tarantula home.